I would like to call this meeting to order. It's an emergency meeting of the Westwood Board of Health, and I would like to ask everyone to identify themselves just so the record is clear. And if it becomes necessary to match what people are saying or to transcribe it, it'll be clear who's saying what. So could each of you just state your name, please?
Roger.
Okay.
Yep. Carol Ahern.
Okay, we got Carol.
Roger Christian.
All right.
Jared Orsini.
Thank you, Jared. And Lorraine, do you want to identify yourself?
Rain Donovan.
Thank you. We have all board members present, so at this point, our Public Health Director, Jared Orsini, would like to read a declaration. This is an emergency meeting. It's given with due notice under the rules, and the Board of Health is prepared to make this declaration.
Thank you. So the Town of Westwood, Massachusetts Board of Health Declaration of Public Health Emergency. Whereas a sudden, generally unexpected occurrence of circumstances demanding public health action has arisen within the world, country, state, and the Town of Westwood due to the coronavirus pandemic. Whereas the President of the United States has declared a national emergency due to this situation and has directed the agencies of the federal government to take appropriate actions. And whereas the Governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has declared a state of emergency in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and declared and has directed the agencies of the state government to take appropriate actions. And whereas the Board of Health, upon advice from advisors and their designees, has determined that the situation poses a present, reasonable, and imminent danger to public health, safety, or general welfare of the people of Westwood or their property, so it has become necessary for the town government to utilize and coordinate the services, equipment, supplies, and facilities of existing departments, offices, and agencies, or the community, both locally, regionally, statewide, and nationally if necessary, including the taking of ordinary and extraordinary actions for the purposes of emergency management and emergency functions to protect the public, and whereas a declaration of emergency and immediate action is needed to prevent, minimize, or mitigate damage to public health, safety, or general welfare of the people of Westwood and or their property which may otherwise result from the above described situation. Now, therefore, the Town of Westwood Board of Health hereby declares that as of March 23rd, 2020, a public health emergency is declared to exist by the Board of Health and authorizes and directs, under the direction of the Town Administrator, all town personnel and agents to take action appropriate to respond to the situation and ratifies, confirms, and adopts any related action taken prior to the formal adoption of the declaration by its Public Health Director and his staff. It is hereby further ordered that Jared Orsini, as Director of Public Health, shall serve as the agent of the Board of Health to effectuate the intent of this order. This declaration of a public health emergency shall remain in effect until notice is given pursuant to the Board of Health's judgment and consideration of state and national guidance that the public health emergency no longer exists.
Okay, this declaration is properly before the board, so there is no need for a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the declaration?
I have none.
I heard none from Roger and none from Carol.
Right.
So we need to take a roll call because of the format of this meeting. Carol Ahern, do you vote in favor of this declaration?
Yes, I do.
And Roger Christian?
Say my name?
Sure.
Oh. Or do you say it? Is it okay that you say it?
I think I did say it and I asked you. And Roger Christian, do you vote in favor of this?
I, Roger Christian, vote in favor of this declaration.
Okay. And I will vote in favor of this as well, so that this declaration has been passed unanimously by the Westwood Board of Health. Now, I've been asked to take a motion that the Board of Health take a vote in support of the declaration of the Board of Selectmen in favor and in support of their declaration of public health emergency. Is there such a motion? Anyone?
I have not seen their declaration.
Their declaration is similar to ours. I have seen it. Jared, I believe, has sent it to us. But it,
That is correct.
Okay,
I only got the public health one.
great.
Is,
But if it's the same,
it's the same general
Want me to
idea.
read it? I have it in front of me.
Yeah, I guess you better read it, Jared, please.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Vote that in light of the rapidly evolving instances of COVID-19 in the Commonwealth and the burdens it will place on local government, that the Select Board vote to adopt the following declaration of emergency. Whereas the 2019 novel coronavirus is highly contagious and potentially fatal respiratory disease, the prevalence of which is increasing rapidly throughout the world, inclusive of the United States and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And whereas on March 11, 2020, the World Health Organization designated the COVID-19 outbreak a pandemic health emergency, and whereas on March 10, 2020, the Governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts issued a declaration of a state of emergency to respond to COVID-19, and whereas on March 13, 2020, the President of the United States announced a national declaration of emergency, and whereas on March 15, 2020, Governor Baker announced emergency actions to respond to the evolving COVID-19 public health emergency impacting the Commonwealth, including prohibitions on public gatherings of 25 or more people and prohibiting on-premises consumption of food or drink at bars and restaurants from March 17, 2020 until April 6, 2020, as well as suspension of elementary and secondary school educational operations from March 17, 2020 until April 6, 2020. And whereas the Select Board and its Board of Health, in consultation with the State Department of Public Health, has determined that COVID-19 presents a major disaster which poses an immediate threat to public health, safety, and general welfare of people residing both within and outside of the town of Westwood. And whereas the Westwood Select Board and its Board of Health have determined that immediate public action is needed in order to prevent or minimize the spread of COVID-19 by and among the people of Westwood. And whereas it is critical to take additional steps to prepare for, respond to, and mitigate the spread of COVID-19 to protect the health and welfare of the people of Westwood. And whereas declaring a state of emergency will facilitate and expedite the use of resources to protect the persons from the impacts of COVID-19, including but not limited to emergency expenditures pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 31, and limitations on operating hours and access to public buildings. And whereas the Select Board and Board of Health recommended that a state of emergency be declared in the town of Westwood. Now, therefore, we, the Select Board and the Board of Health...
Jared,
Yes.
I need to interrupt you right there. There were two changes to the whereas clauses, which really don't affect the vote. Apparently, the Board of Selectmen has also included a clause announcing the governor's declaration of today and also announcing the time of that declaration. But the important thing for our standpoint is what you're going to read from here on in. This is their vote, and this is what we're being asked to support. So go ahead.
Thank you. Now, therefore, we, the Select Board and the Board of Health of the town of Westwood, Massachusetts, hereby declare that as of today, March 23rd, 2020, a state of emergency exists in the town of Westwood. This declaration of emergency shall remain in effect until further notice is given pursuant to our judgment that the conditions leading to this declaration no longer exist.
Okay, is everyone clear now on that declaration of the Board of Selectmen? Is there a motion that the Board of Health vote in favor and in support of that declaration?
I move.
And is there a second, Carol?
I second it, yep.
Okay, so I'm going to now poll the members. Carol, do you vote in favor of that support and motion?
Yes, I do.
And Roger, do you?
I vote in favor of it.
And I do as well, so the Board of Health has unanimously voted to support the declaration of the Board of Selectmen. I don't think we can legally raise any other issues at this meeting. So just before I ask for a motion to adjourn, I want to thank the staff of our Public Health Department, our Health Director, Jared Orsini, Lorraine Donovan, the Administrative Assistant, who's helping on this meeting right now, as well as Jason Belmonte, the Food Inspector, and Tiffany McCarthy, our Public Health Nurse. And I'd also like to thank our Town Administrator, Christopher Coleman, for his leadership on this issue. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I second what you just stated,
Okay, any,
but then I move to
Absolutely.
adjourn.
Thank you.
okay, well,
Thank you very much.
I don't mean to shut anybody off. If anybody else wants to join in, go right ahead, but,
Okay.
all right, well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedules.
Okay.
And
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
And-
Thank you.
Everyone
Thank
stay
you all.
well.
We'll be in touch.
thank you. This
All right.
motion is,
Thanks. Good luck. Okay.
this
Bye-bye.
meeting's now
Bye.
adjourned. Thank you.